So microloans is a bit easier going, right? We're going to be capped out at 50K. And this is going to go for existing and startups. Now, show of hands, how many of you guys have ever gotten a microloan? Let me know in the chats. 1, if you have, 2, if you haven't. Microloan might be a little bit easier going because microloans tend to favor not just startups, but they're also more for like a little bit more on the minority community and a bit more on the challenged income side, because they just understand, hey, these specific group of business owners may not be, 1, in the best area, 2, they may not have all of the documentation in line just yet. Now, this is pretty much the breakdown of it. Average microloan size is about 13K. I don't know about you guys. That doesn't necessarily excite me, right? But again, this is a startup and it's capped out at 50K because they know that you're not going to be able to produce the documentation that they need to provide maybe a $1 million loan with maybe like a 504, right? Or 500K with like a 504 or a 7A. That's why those go up to 5 mil, because they're asking for way more, way more. At that point, they're asking for one of my kids. I mean, I got 4 to give away, but I want to keep them all, right? I want to keep them all. And so terms on this is 7 years, but the trend with all of these, for the most part, prime rate, and they change. I should have probably had that on the slide deck, bro. I could probably bring it next week. Rates on these is usually sits right under 6%, which is, 1, going to be less than 99.9% of all credit cards once that intro period is up. And then 2, they're usually also, those rates are usually better than some of the term loans that you get at banks as well. So something to play around with, right? I know 13K isn't sexy, but the prime rate on these is pretty low. Now, these can be used for working capital, inventory, supplies, furniture, fixtures, machinery, and equipment, pretty much anything that you're going to be needing for your startup or for your small business. The only thing that you can't use it for is you can't use these for real estate, and you can't use it to pay existing debts.
So question. How do they know that happens, right? How do they audit that situation? Like, for people that may be saying, well, how do they know I'm not using it for this? Or how do they know I'm not using it for that? That's a question there. And then where are people getting these microloans from? Are they getting it from a credit union? Are they getting it from a bank? I know this answer, but I want to see what you have to say. And that's my question. Like, how easy is it to get one of these things? Is it's microloans? What I've heard is for a startup, if that's correct, like a 1-year-old business.
Yeah, 1 year, as new as 6 months.
Wow.
You can rock. Yeah, because a lot of it is going to be heavily dependent off of your personal credit score. 620 is what you 620 is what you see on there. But again, baseline, you guys, what are you gonna do with 13K? You know what I mean? Like, is 13K good? Yes, but baseline gives you baseline results. We want better results. So obviously, stronger the credit, the more funding you get. And so the way that they find out, hey, how you've been using it is, you guys remember in the PPP when we had to submit this documentation of how we use the funds and then get it forgiven? Similar here.
Gotcha.
They start monitoring. They start monitoring, saying, okay, hey, how have you been using the funds? And obviously, if you're buying it for real estate, they can go back in, county records, check deeds. I mean, do we want to get sneaky with the whole trusts and, buying it on the LLC off of my name? But again, now we start kind of going back into the game of, we're burning our bridges, right? Remember, we can come out of Amex jail. Being an SBA jail is totally different. Being an SBA jail might actually put you in jail. So just a heads up. So that's a literal different kind of jail. Now, with where you can get them, I mean, I have like full slide decks on that if you want me to give it to them now, or you want them to wait for it.
Bro, so it's completely up to you, bro.
We'll let them wait for it because I got some more to cover with them. Basic requirements. Personal tax returns at least 2 years. Now, this isn't again, necessity or necessary to get approved for this loan, but it does help if you already have. Remember, this is for either the existing business owner or the startup. So basic stuff, personal tax returns, which most of us should have, recent pay stubs, a list of collateral, if you wanted to maybe use that to kind of hedge your way more into a higher amount. The reason why, I'll pause it here, the reason why some people may want to put an item as collateral apart from one securing the debt, which means they're going to get qualified for a higher amount, is the following. Maybe they have challenged credit. That's number one. Number two is, maybe I don't want a UCC filing placed directly on my business. Blanket filing, which usually happens with the SBA. Maybe I just want that directly on a piece of equipment. So now that frees me up. So when I go out to a bank for some more traditional funding, they don't see an actual lien attached to my file. They see it, or essentially it's just on that piece of equipment. And so now you're able to get even more funding executed outside of the SBA. A little side note there that I wanted to give. Business plan, cash flow projections, contracts, quotes, and purchase agreements. So again, if you're already running that type of business, then you can go ahead and provide that. Existing businesses will also need to document business financials, which may include business tax returns, which again is different from 2 years of personal tax returns, right? Balance sheet, income statements, business loan lease contracts, business licenses, permits, and a list of current business assets. Again, this is for both parties right here. SBA Community Advantage. So this one right here was actually a loan or a loan pilot program, and it was actually set to expire last year, 2022, but they actually extended it, and they're all the way to next year, right before elections, so September 30th, 2024. And they extended this one right here because it's a term loan or a line of credit up to $300,000. Now, it hasn't passed just yet, but there is a bill that they've already put in through to Senate to see if they can keep this one like on the books with the SBA permanently. But for right now, it's still on a pilot program. So this one right here is time sensitive. So if you're looking at this on the replay up through September 30th, 2024, if you're watching the replay and they've already extended it, then obviously X that out. Or if you're watching the replay and it's already been canceled, then that's why right there. So SBA is going to guarantee 85% of the loans up to 150K and 75% of the loans greater than 150K. What that means is, let's say if the bank that you go to defaults, or you essentially default on the loan that you have with them, they're going to guarantee 85 on that. And so that means is now it's a wash. So you have to pay the SBA again. You don't have to go and pay the bank. Again, that's if you default. Remember, the main thing with this is, and I know I keep saying default because I'm not trying to scare anyone, Rad, but the reason why I'm saying this is because if somebody isn't ready for this, this is the last relationship that you want to screw up. Because the way that it escalates, it goes from a default with the SBA. They send you a notice. From that notice, you have 60 days to pretty much repay the amount, especially if you've been dodging them. And then from there, it goes to Treasury. Treasury Department is just another fancy word for the same people that collect our income taxes every year, the IRS. So at that point, you have a lien placed on you by the Treasury. That's why I'm really taking my time with the section right here.
Take your time, brother. Break it down. Take your time. Take your time.
I know it's not the sexiest, guys. I know it's not the sexiest slide that you've seen, but it is real. And it is going to keep a lot of us outside of that danger zone, right? So 10 years for working capital, equipment, and inventory purchases. Same number that we've been seeing up to this point, 25 years for real estate purchases. Lines of credit can't exceed 10 years though. So just a heads up, if you're going for a line of credit with the community advantage, you can't exceed 10 years on it. Funding speed is 7 to 10 days on the turnaround time on whether you're approved or not. The distribution on those funds is you're usually looking at around 35 to 70 days. It moves a little bit slower with the SBA. You guys already know how the IRS moves when they're trying to send you your refund and you're calling them up. SBA is similar to that. But again, when you get access to these funds, the rate that they give you is a lot better. Now, startups with 1 year or less in operation can be eligible. Again, a lot of this is going to be dependent off how your cash flow is in that first year, how structured you are, and what your credit is looking like. So 600 plus. The reason why I think that this is such a powerful program that a lot of people are sleeping on is because, I mean, baseline credit is 600. I think that the majority of us on here, especially if you've been in business for at least a year, it may be one of those that you might want to consider, right? Now, you do have to be a for-profit business, obviously operating here in the States. Borrowers who own 20% or more on the business must personally guarantee. And so downside with this is if you have 1 to 2 partners, 2 or 3 partners on there, every single person on there, if they own 20% or more, has to pretty much personally guarantee this loan. So, you guys figure that out. If later on you wanted to branch off, do your own thing, you're still held liable for this. So if you wanted to do like a restructure and you wanted to maybe just have you personally guarantee because you had the stellar credit, this may be the option for you. So that way you can go ahead and PG this. Most lenders though might ask for collateral if you're requesting over 50K. And so typically the way that it works, if you don't want it to be collateralized under $50,000, right? If you want to kind of start moving your way up into that 50, 100, 150, all the way up to that 350 range, they may request some type of collateral. Now, other than that, everything else is pretty much standard with what you kind of see with the SBA, existing debt schedules, business certificates, business overview and history, business leases, the whole 9 yards, right? And of course, tax returns. Tax returns is probably the number one reason why I see a lot of people shy away from SBA loans. I mean, I don't blame them.
Why?
There's two groups of us. And so I don't blame those of us that maybe our income isn't there just yet. You know what that's like. I know what that's like, right? I don't have numbers to report just yet, but I do have personal credit that can maybe kind of move the needle a little bit more. So I would still at least try giving it a shot, even if the worst thing they tell you is, hey, you've been denied, right? Okay, cool. Now I know what to look for. Now I know what to build. Now I have a dollar amount that I know I may need to hit, right? But for the other group of us is maybe we've been rocking a little too heavy with some of the business losses. Look, guys, we know the game, right? 5 years, and you have 5 years in business, you can have 3 of those years at a loss. But once you go past those 3 years at a wash, I understand we don't want to pay taxes. I understand that, maybe we want to kind of play around with their tax return a little bit. I get it. You got a good CPA. You got somebody maybe doing it yourself, somebody who's kind of like playing around with that with you. At one point or another, though, you end up kind of like handcuffing yourself outside of better options from what you have right now. And so that's my thoughts on why. And that's why I say it's two different sets of us. Those of us that, again, are scared to report, and those of us that, again, we just don't have enough to report, right? You kind of figure out which side you're on. Express loans, these are term loans or lines of credit up to $500K. These are also 10 years on working capital, equipment, and inventory purchases. Same thing with real estate. 25 years on real estate purchases, lines of credit up to 10 years. Now, the funding speed on this is 36 hours. But from the moment that you actually get the approval to the moment that money, that line of credit, that term loan, whatever it is that you get approved for hits your bank, you're looking at 90 days. Now, this can be used for real estate purchases, business expansions and renovations. Startups 1 year or less in operation can be eligible as well. Basic requirements similar to the community, and that is credit at least 600. Under 600, you can apply for up to 150. So if you have under a 600 credit score, you're not going to be able to obviously get up to the 500K. You're going to be able to get up to the 150. If you have over that, then obviously you can qualify for as much as they give you, but you can go and push kind of like the mark on that 500 as close as you can to it. The rest of this is pretty much straightforward. I hope that you guys are seeing a trend with the type of paperwork documentation that the SBA is asking for. I promise you that if you come back to these sections and you kind of get everything squared away, pay someone if you have to get everything like this squared away. I'll be real with you guys. One of the fastest and easiest ways you can do this is get yourself a really good CPA or a bookkeeper that actually understands this stuff and can just kind of like do everything for you and just label it. So that way, okay, I have a detailed schedule. I obviously have my tax returns. I have my existing debt schedule. I have my business certificates because I got that. So now you have your registered agent, right? So now they're helping you out, making sure that your business licenses, your LLC, if you're an S Corp, all of that, your articles of organization, if you needed to amend anything. Guys, building a business is all about building a team. Your CPA is on your team. Registered agent or a good attorney is on your team, right? Obviously, you guys have a hell of a coach like Rad who can kind of guide you guys through some of the pitfalls that he's gone through. Hey, on this street, turn left. Hey, don't go past that street after 12. Like I've been there, right? And so everyone here is on your team. So you don't have to do it alone. So if it looks like it's overwhelming, it's because you're being exposed to new information and you're starting to see, okay, damn, this is what it takes to run a legitimate business, right?